Good morning, everyone. I know we are all in going through some really difficult times, but one of the unintended consequences of COVID has been that we've suddenly become digitally literate across ages, across regions, across job roles, and I think thankfully, we live in an era where we can take advantage of technology, and hence we are able to do this. Webinar through, combinations of technology. If I were to tell you, we're using Skype for our conversations, we're using a software called OBS to make this go live through YouTube. So I think we should say a word of gratitude to the evolution of technology for sure for us to be able to do something like this. I think from the time COVID has hit us, we've realized that while we've been talking a lot about future of work, suddenly future of work is here for us to deal with. And from where we see, at least from where I can see, the future is quite unknowable, unmodelable. Yeah. But one of the primary concerns or immediate concerns of organizations has been that suddenly from zero work from home, we have 100% of our workforce working from home. I hear that globally, the most advanced technology companies have not been able to achieve more than 40 to 50% work from home, in spite of all their infrastructures and resources. And suddenly, tech companies, manufacturing companies, servicing companies, whatever comes to your mind, are now working from home. Of course, there are questions on how many people are working, but then we feel that while we might have succeeded in ensuring continuity, the debate or the verdict is still out there in terms of whether we've achieved productivity or not. So I think in our conversations with various organizations, we have been hearing that most organizations are currently challenged in terms of how to keep the employee base or the talent base gainfully occupied, engaged, focused. And hence, and different companies are coming up with different kinds of solutions. So we thought, why not get together some experts who come from different diverse backgrounds to talk to us about their own challenges and how they have gone about mitigating, and if there are any tips that we can pick from them to help in our workplaces, probably that would be quite useful. So I do have elite panel which has years of experience in dealing with human resource and human resource challenges. I have Ms. Jankana Desai. She is founder and managing director of Kesar. I will leave it to her to introduce herself in detail in a bit. We have Dr. K.S. Gunj. He is head of HR Business Excellence in RDC Concrete. And we have Sujitesh, our dear friend, who is now the Global Digital Ambassador of the World Assessment Council. But he has years and years of experience, especially in the world of technology. So now I would request, Jankana, why don't you, all of you can just spend 2 seconds to, or not 2 seconds, take more than that, to introduce yourself, and then we will start with the questions.
Sure. Very good morning to all of you and the viewers who are watching this now. And thank you for your kind words, Ritu. So yes, we're all here to discuss the challenges which seemed like a mountain when the lockdown started, but now we've all sort of come around to get used to it. So I lead a company called Kesar BPO, and as the name suggests, we are a BPO company with about 500 to 600 workforce at any given point in time. It being the service industry, it's quite resource intensive and security intensive as well. So just to give you an idea of how critical this work from office is in our case. So I'll come to it later when we do the round.
Yeah, this is Dr. Boone. I am not saying that I am saying it for the first time, but this type probably for the first time. I was in the army, so I have seen two wars. I was there. I went up to Bangladesh in '71. So I was away from my home, no letters, nothing. But this one is quite different. Technology is there. You can talk. We have videos with our families, but it's quite different. RDC Concrete is actually a ready-mix company having plants all over India. So we have workforce about 800 on roll and another 800 who are on contract. And we supply concrete to anyone, even a home buyer or even to home builder rather, or even to multi-story buildings like 100. We can pump concrete up to 100 floors. That's our capability. So almost nothing can be done for work from home. I think I stopped at that. We have more to come. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Sujitesh, and thanks Ritu for hosting me here in a virtual mode. So I currently advise 3 organizations, and I can talk about, and all of them happen to be digital. So one of them happens to be digitally born. Other one is another, that's a product analytics organization, and the other one is basically a VC kind of a company which has portfolio organizations. Largely in the digital world, and I'll be happy to share why it's digitally born, digitally native, but what's been the journey in terms of... Yeah, but they have to work hard. I think the whole point was that there was a perception that they don't work hard.
What is coming on the screen?
Okay, I'll share something very small. I said those who are sitting from home, they are doing nothing, they are gone home. Some of them were left the city, they are gone home. I said they will be paid only 50%. I mean, this is a discussion stage. Youngsters, especially the younger trainees, basically trainees. Then the question came from my HR girl saying, sir, what is their fault? I said, what is the fault of the company? Yes, I agree. It is not their fault that they are not able to work. But what is the fault of the company? Oh, sir, yes, I understood. This goes much more than purely saying what is my fault. The fault is much bigger now. It goes deeper. So then one answer to her, what is the fault of the company? I can't work. I am not allowed by the government to work. So what do we do? From where do we get cash? So I think my own HR team, we had to really convince them that we are in different times. Very different. Agreed.
Ashley, when are we starting?
Yeah, now it will come. Now it will come.
Done.
Hello, Ashley, check now.
Can someone say something?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ritu, yeah, can you hear me?
No, I think Jamshana was not able to hear. So
I can hear you.
Ritu, we can Ritu, we are live again. We can start now.
Yeah,
We can start.
okay, I think we are live now. Okay, we are live now. Thank you. Sorry again. I think please bear with us. We did have how much pressure can technology take at the end of the day? But anyway, we did have a little bit of a glitch. We are back again, and I'm going to start with the first question that I had asked Jankana, which is, given that her organization had zero resources working from outside of office, to today a scenario where nobody can work from office, how has been the experience? What have been her challenges? What have been the challenges around productivity or just continuity for all one knows? So, Jankana, over to you again. Let's resume the conversation.
Sure, thank you. So it's a good question because, like you said, the first question is that of continuity. And then the second would be productivity. So to talk about continuity, in our case, there are two major issues. One is the way the technology security is set up around the internet and the IT security, and second is the physical security. So the physical security is so tight that you have to ensure a paperless environment, considering that you work with client data. And the privacy laws are pretty stringent, both globally as well as now in India. So no one is allowed to carry their phones inside, or notebooks, or pen, or anything inside the office. Everyone has to leave it outside and come in, so that no data is picked up either by phone or on paper. So while your technical security can be taken care of in any environment, whether out of office or even at home, your physical security remains a challenge. So we had to deal with that. Obviously, we overcame that by suppressing the numbers. So the sensitive information was suppressed and not sent to agents when we finally migrated it to work from home. So the entire setup for these 500 plus people was migrated to a hosted module overnight in less than 48 hours. And we started well before lockdown, considering that the density of people in the office is quite high. I was not very comfortable. So I said, let's do this, whether, we didn't know that government is going to come up with this. But we started 48 hours in advance, which was a good thing. And therefore, we managed to migrate it before the lockdown was announced. So 70% clients, and see, our environment is an extremely, because we are in an outsourced operation, it's an extremely client-driven environment. And therefore, we need their approvals before changing anything. So we got approvals from about 70% of our clients, and we moved all those people to home. Now, the challenges, other challenges that we faced were resources. One is everyone does not have an access to laptop. Also, considering the demand-supply situation around that time, we could not even hire laptops in this time frame. It was also difficult to ask people to take their office desktops home, because they all come from different parts of Mumbai. They all come by trains, etc. How do you get them to their residences? They are spread all over Bombay, different suburbs. So it was very difficult for us as an organization to get these resources to their homes. So we had to launch again in less than 24 hours, launch a light version of CRM, which would be operated on their phones. And we just went ahead with this solution. Obviously, it came with its own challenges. It took some settling down time. It took some 3-4 days for people to get used to it, because it was very hard for people, taking call on the same phone and have a small screen. They're used to large desktop screens, and now suddenly there is this small screen on which they have to work. Obviously, those processes that used sheets were not migrated because of data concerns. So those 30% did not move anywhere. They were shut down immediately. But the 70% which could migrate, which were pretty secure, we did. So this being taken care of, the second challenge was that of internet bandwidth, something we just spoke about before getting on this webinar. So the bandwidth is such a, I would say, precious resource at the moment, and everybody is trying to take their share out of whatever is available. So that is a concern. So the call frequently drops, then they lose link, the data link, etc. So that was the second challenge. Also, the kind of homes that people live in or people come from. See, everybody, I just listened to a talk by Sadhguru yesterday, where he was talking about the challenge of people living in a 2 BHK home. Now here, 2 BHK is a luxury in Mumbai. Based out of Thane, and a lot of people who come to work, live in Chawls. They have one room home. one-room kitchen, and there are 8 to 10 family members living in that one room. How would they get a private spot to take calls which are undisturbed by background noise? So these were some of the challenges that we faced. So employee engagement was not a challenge at all for us, but there were all these different kind of things that played up. And those people who had more than 8, 10 members or who lived in very congested homes, they are not able to work. So we had to we had to allow them not to work.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I'm going to have some follow-up questions to the stuff that you said, quite a few questions, but let me just finish the round and then we will come back to those questions. All very, very relevant points you raised, and I think many of us have struggled. One thing we have realized is that suddenly data is oil. I think it's become so precious today. But moving on to you, Dr. Boone, what have been because you are on a similar board. None of your people were working out of office and suddenly they can't go to office. So what were your challenges and what kind of engagement you had, continuity issues you had, productivity issues you had?
Okay, so firstly, the moment this lockdown was announced, our first worry was really not engagement. First worry was cash. Cash is king. Cash is going to be the king because there will be no cash will come. No, once the lockdown is there, even my creditor, they have started paying after the lockdown. They don't pay. So we did something and we collected a lot of whatever was lying here and there so that we are at least keep our head above the water. That was the first immediate reaction. Secondly, as I said, we cannot work from home because our plants are located all over the country. They supply within the cities. So work from home virtually is impossible. And nothing can be produced now. Nothing can be moved. So I have to produce, I have to move it on the road, and I have to deliver to the customer. It is the end-to-end supply chain. All these are not possible. So practically, it's a standstill. I mean, no work is happening. Then we said, oh my God, now these 40 days or 25 days earlier, now 21 days, now 40 days. What do we do? So we did a survey among our employees immediately. In fact, within 3 days, we had a survey rolled out. We want to figure out their issues, our issues, how do we use this thing. So we got 4 outputs out of that survey. One is anxiety and fear. Since I have been into some situations like this, I made a video and we posted it on our YouTube channel so that they could see what anxiety and fear, how they can be handled. I mean, these are situations which will come in life. So biggest thing was 78% people had anxiety and fear issues. The second one was that work from home. What work from home? It's very difficult. Even if you give me work, I can't. There is hardly any. I'm not used to it. That's another. The third one was that 15% of my people, when the lockdown is lifted, they are mentally not ready to go back to work in this kind of an environment. Everybody knows virus is not going to go away. So what do we do with those 15% people? We identified all this. Ultimately, we figured out that employee engagement, productivity and profitability, there is a very strong link. It's a strong chain. This chain has been now broken. Once this chain is broken, what is left? Profitability is gone. Productivity, the way we define it, it's gone. Only engagement is left. So probably what you can do now is, as I said earlier, is engage people so that they become more productive and then profitable, and we cover up all that. That's why we moved in. So do you want me to cover what all we did? Or because there is a second sort of a set where you say your best practices, or do you tackle it? Yeah, Ritu, tell me, please.
Come back to your solution, what you have done as a second round of questions.
Yeah, okay.
Just for the benefit of everyone in this streaming, Dr. Boone is a war veteran and has been with the army, and he may not have experienced COVID, but he's definitely experienced difficult situations much more than what we people who live in the comforts of cities have experienced. So it's always good to have someone like you amongst us. Sujitesh, now on to you. What are the things that you've heard from the different companies that you are advising? What do you think have been the typical challenges they have faced? Of course, the tech companies were much better prepared, relatively better prepared, but yet, throw some light on this.
Yeah, I think in the last couple of years I've been talking a lot about digital, and this was like an acid test of how we are ready, and what kind of assumptions we made or perceptions that we had. So let me cover briefly. So one, I think from an employee standpoint, everybody who was working in the tech digital side of things wanted to definitely work from home, because that was, while there was some policies that briefly allowed a few days or a few restrictions, certain levels of the company, the dream ask or the wish, the laundry first list or the thing is like, can we all work from home? I think there were tools that were supporting. I think it was never tested to have 100% work from home, but generally, I think all the companies that I advise, there was a policy in place. There was an avenue to do that, but not like 100%, right? So not all managers were prepared, and the whole, whether the trust was there and the thing. So I think work from home moving was not that difficult because of the nature of the business and some early adoption to it. In fact, the company in Bangalore, because we, while the national lockdown happened on 25th of March, it's almost like 13th of March, it's 12 days before that, the process had started. But I think one which came from work from home, which is WFH, there's another work from home, which is called work for home. So I think as the lockdown really started, right, and suddenly you had to figure out a lot of millennial crowd which would have their lunch and sometimes their snacks and maybe their dinner at the office, had to figure out where would they get the food from. There are a lot of people who are staying in, while we say work from home, but I know like 75% of the crowd of the companies I engage with, they're not really at home. So they're actually in a home away from home, right? So they're in PGs and they're in shared accommodation. Most of them are not really having a family right here. So they're singles. So they got to figure out, they got to make suddenly a kitchen for themselves. They got to figure out where they eat if the Swiggies and Zomatos are suddenly not delivering. And it doesn't help if, they get some grocery and how much can you actually survive on noodles and, pre-packaged food. So I think the whole thing was work for home. So that had to be kind of built in. And I think the first week, 10 days was all about saying, okay, you're expecting work from home, but then work for home. And the same population that was asking for this also realized, 100% work from home is a different agenda altogether. Okay, that's one on the employee side. I think on the customer side, suddenly it was all about empathizing with the customers, because the customers are also going through the same pain. It was not just a vendor-supplier issue, or even if you're, if it's a product company, your customer is also going through the same pain. And the shift had to move from essentially from a discretionary things that the customer wanted to actually what the pain points are, what are the needs, what are the immediate things to do, right? And I think that needed a change in mindset, both from the customer-facing roles, which is the sales guys, and then also the people who are kind of delivering or attending to the customer success. So a whole mindset thing, and I think it's still not sorted out. It's we're still going through that process of reorienting what is called customer orientation, right? So we got to figure that out. I think the third thing, while technology is being talked about so much, and a lot of people saying if everybody's working from HR, then what has HR got to do with it, right? So one thing is sometimes I felt that technology has become more human, right, than the human beings earlier, right? So I think with this work from home, enabling technology is putting a check on both management, leadership, and also the employees, right? So one gets to be more disciplined, use technology, collaboration is coming in. But at the same time, the human out of human resources cannot be taken out. So as we speak, and I think the smarter ones, the more knowledgeable ones know that there is a pressure. There is a pressure on profitability, on cash flow, a recession that almost is there. So, and we are seeing a lot of things now coming around, counseling, and I'm not talking counseling the bottom half of the pyramid. Actually, it is the top half of the pyramid, right? The leadership -1, leadership -2, they're actually, there is so much anxiety and fear. So it's not just anxiety and fear at a broader level, but actually anxiety and fear on the leadership level. And therefore, and that's something that technology really can't address, and that's keeping HR folks like me at actually who's going to have the difficult conversations, who's going to be the listening board, what's the how do you kind of reorient it, and I think these are some of the challenges that I have seen in the last 30 days.
Much of what all three of you have said, I think we ourselves have experienced, because Teamlease, when we processed more than 700,000 transactions, and that's all done from offices, from our different offices. So we have not really seen a single day where we had to do any of this away from office. And that's why our tools, workflows, structures, organization structures, were all built for a work from office environment, and we had to now bag and baggage. And I think bits and pieces of what many of you have touched upon, things like infrastructure issues, hardware issues, data security issues, whether in terms of how you balance between your internal engagement as well as customers. How do you keep your customer also, our outlook that customer is still important? How do we continue to service them? I think we have ourselves firsthand experienced all of it, and I think all of what you have shared resonates well with me. I think let's move on to what have we done about some of these challenges. I know it was just thrown at us with very little preparedness, and hence from your vantage point, from in your respective organizations, or given your nature of business, how did you go about dealing with that? How did you ensure that you kept the team together, you kept working? Because I think finally you can't stop work. The organization's performance, profitability, revenues are dependent on ensuring that the show goes on. So what have you done to keep the team together and get them rallying around in spite of all the challenges and difficulties? So if there are any innovative practices you've adopted, also I've heard that some businesses, given their categorization, were able to have some people work from office. Any insight? I mean, it may not be applicable to your business, but in your HR fraternity, have you heard any stories about how people managed in spite of, let's say, 15-20% of staff may be working out of offices? What have they done? So I think any perspective is good for us, given that the audience today is quite diverse. So can we start with you, Sujitesh?
So I think one thing I think we did in terms of, I think it also has to look at it from a business standpoint, right? So I think employee engagement is one part of it, and I'll talk about it, but I think it's more important to look at it from a business angle. So the first thing, I think one thing we have done is, reoriented our business plan to a quarterly plan. So we're no longer talking about an annual plan, we're talking about a quarterly plan. So whatever was happening annual becomes quarterly, and what was happening quarterly becomes monthly, and whatever was happening monthly becomes weekly. So that's the rhythm in which we've got into, right? Because you can't really think like the annual, you can't even know what's going to happen next month or 2 months. So I think that's the one change that we immediately did. Second one is that, we started looking at reserves and buffers, right? Including, and that this may kind of strike some controversial thing around maternity breaks, but I think given the maternity break is of 6 months, and one of the things that was challenging is that, people would have to come and travel down to office. But I think the work from home enabled, mothers who are delivered and, after 3 months to actually utilize another 3 months that they are on maternity break, but on a voluntary consent basis, we've been able to leverage their services. It was all about using the reserves and buffers, because this is not the time that you went for fresh hiring, and you also wanted to look at people whom had worked with you, who had spent some time with you, and kind of that knowledge. So I think that's another thing. I don't know whether it's an innovative practice, but in difficult times, everybody has to come to play, right? And while there are rules and regulations, I think you have to also use the law and not just follow the law. Okay, so that's the one thing. The third one, in terms of engagement, I think there's a lot of talk around platforms like Skype that we are on, and Zoom and all that stuff. But I think there's some cool digital engagement workspaces. Now, these have come up in the last 3-4 years, but not very much utilized to the fullest extent. So there's Workplace by Facebook, and there's Slack. So this kind of helps you to constantly communicate and build a semi-formal or an informal atmosphere to keep some of those things that replicate if to some extent virtually of what's happens in a typical office atmosphere, right? We also looked at both onboarding and offboarding, do it virtually, and I think this is something that most of the organizations will have to start doing in terms of digitally signature, verifying digital signatures, etc. I think as we speak, we are trying to not just do work from home, but actually go to WFA, which is working from anywhere, because that's going to be the next one. And how do you actually make people really, really work out of their base location? So how does geography become history in the process? Is something, again, work in progress, and how much can be done. And I'll talk a little bit about what are the current plans, because we're looking at obviously optimizing costs and see that the impact on the employees is to the least. So how do you look at most of your capex, which is slowly becoming dead assets with organizations that I'm advising? How do we reduce that expenditure in parallel to how do we optimize costs for employees?
Thanks so much. Dr. Woon, why don't you weigh in? What have you been doing to kind of overcome some of the challenges that you're facing from a talent perspective? Again, how are you ensuring continuity? How are you ensuring productivity? And how are you keeping them engaged?
Okay, so as I said, work from home for productivity is virtually not possible because we are a completely brick and mortar company. So in such a situation, what could you do? We could probably keep the employees motivated, engaged. I think the major productivity thing one we could do was the building up their capability, because that online is possible. Luckily, all my employees have a smartphone. So smartphone today is a very big tool. So we did 2-3 things. We luckily had a portal which was launched about 6 months before this. It's called Diksha, which is an online e-learning portal. A large number of courses either had been developed or we had outsourced these courses. We had a plan to cover something like 2.5 courses per employee end of December. We already done it in this short period now, because this is the time available to you. So we put these people on courses. We also have a system of testing them, because they have only a smartphone. The test can be done only on a laptop. So the manager's laptop is captured on the mobile and the test is taken on that. So this is a small a brick and mortar company like me, ReadyMix Type. We did this innovation that is still under supervision. The test is giving under supervision. And then of course there is a certification. This is one of the bigger one we did. Then of course in the normal course of business, you do not get as much time to think and ideate. So we created a group. We call it Innovate to Excel. People, those who think, it is not by hierarchies. People we found, we invited, you give a very good idea, we'll put you in the group. So we had some good number of people into that group. They started thinking how to become much more productive than we were, because we now got much more time to think and plan and act on it. So the plans have been made. We are waiting for this 20th. Unfortunately, they are not allowing us to work even on 20th, although construction industry in some places has been exempted, but local governments are not allowing. They are saying the work should be staying at site. All those issues are there. So we are waiting for now 3rd of May. After which, hopefully, because we have something called multi-skilling, which was not pulling up to that extent. That multi-skilling has now been pulled up quite a bit. Incidentally, before this, we had developed a business game. This business game was half ready, online business game, but we made it ready in quick time and we rolled it out. So this business game, basically my managers and all now we are trained in how to make business more profitable than it earlier was. Another thing which we had, a big challenge, apart from the motivation and engagement of employees, was our assets. We have over 50 plants spread out all across the country. Other than security, nobody is there in the plant. There is a lot of equipment, IT equipment, a lot of equipment is there in the plant. How do we ensure security? We already had gone a lot of digital, so all my plants have IP cameras. So these were not captured, and we put people on, like army, there is a system of duty officer. At night, one person is on duty, he goes around. Here we made a duty officer everywhere for each plant, day and night, so that they look into this camera that everything is safe. They also will capture picture and post. So this is engagement, this is productivity in this environment, and this, of course, I am protecting my assets. So that in the army we use a term called keep the powder ready. So I think all our time of the senior management is going into keeping the powder ready, dry. The moment we are in it, we are going to fire the salvos. And I think we are ready. So that is the only positive we have. Now everybody is positive. Yes, we'll be able to do even better than currently we are doing. And we also had a very small thing called mask making competition. Since everybody said you have to wear mask, and mask will be now in vogue till December. So we had mask making competition, more than 100 entries came. We made a collage of those entries. We declared 3, 4, 5 entries. We gave them prizes, uploaded onto our YouTube channel. Everybody's going, giving hit, oh, this is my mask, that mask, and all. So you keep on. The point I'm trying to make is this excitement has to be kept all the time. The good point is, because of the mobiles, it is possible to reach out to people. And at least this is what they can do. So planning, preparing for future, and innovating, preventing my assets, and of course cash. So all my sales staff is virtually in touch with the customer. Now we are regularly in touch with customer. CEO has sent mails to them that we stand by them, and almost every day these people are calling them, checking about this thing, also checking, sir, what will be the future order? Well, business is going that way. So we are piling up what is normally called a order book. So I think right now we have reached a stage where generally people are mostly comfortable. I'm going to do another survey now to find out how this anxiety and fear is gone, or it is reduced, or what has happened. But things are now looking up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As usual, it's always good to have an army man. You pick up these very interesting terms. So keep the powder ready, something that I will never forget. I'll keep that in my head. So yeah, keep the powder ready. I think that's very key now for all of us. Yes, over to you, Priyanka now. What have you been doing to, again, the same questions, continuity, productivity, engagement. How have you solved some of the challenges?
Well, I already addressed the productivity bit or the technical bit and the productivity bit in my earlier answer. So I'll not repeat that again. But from a human resource perspective, how did we keep the engagement going? Because with a vast workforce working from home, it's quite a daunting task. But I think the blessing of being in a BPO industry is that it is so process driven. So today we realize that all these processes came in so handy when this happened. So we anyway have this routine of daily briefings with the teams. See, one is the structure, and two is the processes set within the structure. Okay, so your structure it's a proper pyramid where you have a huge frontline revenue generating workforce. Then you have teams within the workforce, and you have supervisors leading teams of 10 to 15 people. You have auditors who audit the work of these each team. So you have 3 supervisors attached to an auditor, and then there are assistant managers and managers above them, and so on and so forth. So there is quite a structure, and the structure is required because this work is pretty repetitive, daunting, and very resource intensive, as I said. So you need to have all these people looking over people and ensuring that everything is, because in factory, everything is churned out basis the mold, and there is no room for error. But in this kind of, when you are dealing with human resources in a factory-like environment, there could be, it is error prone. So now the very processes came in handy, just that they were virtual in nature. So every morning, our supervisors and managers had structured check-ins on Zoom calls and go to meeting, etc. They used all these technology within the teams. Once those structured check-ins were over in the morning, then there would be all the supervisors and auditors, etc., would rally into the managers and report back. Also, for every client and every work group, we created WhatsApp groups. Now, this was very simple and basic, though you have Roundcube and we used to use a lot of other things like Slack, also have Azure, Microsoft Teams. That is quite useful, but at a short notice, and we found this very simple. People are comfortable, and they're anyway always they're on the phone, so it's easier for them to access and report, and it's quick. So every morning we would get till date we get attendance of every work group. So first thing, how many people are logging in, how many are active, how many are absent, etc. They are briefed on any updates, what are the challenges they faced, how do we help them, etc. Then we had a group for technology issues where the technology team was a part there. Now, in this current challenging or unusual circumstances, everyone has to step forward and become an HR person, I would say. So we kept speaking to our leadership teams, like the supervisors and the training team and the managers, to ensure that the operations, the auditors, the trainers, everyone becomes an extended HR resource. So while the HR teams were always constantly speaking to the team and addressing their issues, but because initially, they were daunted with all these IT issues, less bandwidth, background noise, they're getting logged out, and there is the discomfort, right? It takes time to get used to the change. So that was the critical period, the initial week, where we constantly kept communicating. So I can't stress enough how important communication is during such times. So now they're all settled, everybody is happy, and you'll be surprised to know that our productivity was much better when they were at home, because there were no usual stresses of commuting by local trains and the buses, overcrowded buses, etc. So all the travel time that was saved and the stress that was taken away resulted into better productivity. But now I cannot say the same, because demand has dropped considerably for known reasons. So it's a very different scenario now, but the initial week or two, the demand was also there, because people thought that life will get back to normal. And they kept, but as time progressed and the number of cases started going up, I think people started realizing that this is here to stay for a while, and the demand just stopped. And a lot of clients withdrew and said that we're not going to continue the assignment or the engagement for next 3 months, 4 months, etc. So every day the situation was evolving from a business perspective. Every day we had to redo our business plan, like I think Sujit mentioned here. Every day we were sitting and doing our numbers with the business team. And we have, and the minute you plug in the numbers, you would get some more communication. So it's evolving every day, and now we've decided that just leave it there. Let us take each at a time and make the plans for the last 2 quarters. These 2 quarters, let things evolve. So obviously, cash flows, finances, etc., are a big issue, a major concern. But and yes, the only solution is to collect and to apply for loans, look up to. So I am personally engaging with various various associations and bodies like NASSCOM, as well as the IMC and the CII and others, to ensure that representations are sent to the government regarding supports that we need to in turn support our people. Because in industries like ours, where 70 to 75% of the revenue converts into a wage bill. How do you keep it going? How do you keep the clock ticking is the moot question. So yes, employee engagement, I think people are pretty engaged, happy, and they are working well. So I don't see that to be a challenge at all. But yes, on the business side, there are far greater challenges.
Sure.
Also, I think having a millennial population as a millennial workforce helps to a great extent.
That's interesting. You're saying in terms of their ability to adapt to the new environment and the changes? Right. Makes sense. So I think we spent some time in terms of talking about the challenges, some of the innovative steps that are being taken by each one of you and organizations per se. I think one of the discussions which have got pushed forward in terms of has been the conversations on the importance of learning and development in the current times, right? So I think I'd like to probably hear from you in terms of how have you leveraged the current times, the last 30 days? What role has COVID played in terms of how you viewed skill development, learning and development, upskilling, upgrading your teams? And have you made any investments in that? Have you seen some success? What's been your experience per se on that? So Jhankana, I'll start with you and then we'll the reverse order.
Yeah, again, now this is a very interesting question because coming from the challenge, business on the business side, where your clients are activating the force majeure clause in the contract and suspending contracts for an indefinite period. The only option you have is to reskill your people. So we had to immediately go find work. We realized that there are just a couple of industries well in the current times. One is your e-commerce essential services, other is insurance. And I think, yeah, these two are mainly the industries that are really flourishing at the moment. Besides healthcare, of course. But so on the insurance side, we realized that there was an opportunity, so we've started a reskilling program for our people who are not working for their clients, for their assigned clients anymore. Now, if you look at the pre-COVID era, the minute you say that, okay, you're going to move from this assignment to another assignment, people would come with their resignations and say, if I'm not allowed to work for this client, I'll quit. I don't want to work for anyone else. Now, this is again a millennial thing. I don't know if they change organizations, they would anyway have to work for a different industry or a different client. But then they think that people on insurance. So, and I'm getting a lot of requests from the Balance Group saying that, please take us up for training. We want to learn this. We want to work on this assignment, etc. So yes, this is working. Now this is at the frontline level, the telecallers. For the leadership or the managerial levels, we've identified a lot of courses that are given out free by IIMs and Harvard. These are like 6-week courses, 3 etc. So we've sent these links to everyone and asked everyone, made it compulsory for them to pick up at least one course and enhance their knowledge, skill, etc. So to become better leaders. And people are welcoming this because they're saving their time, commute time, etc. And everyone, I think, wants to use this time to add new skills.
Dr. Bund, over to you.
Yeah, okay. As I said, we have an online learning platform, luckily launched 6 months back, called Diksha. In addition, we have a tie-up with the DDI for assessment, online assessments. So these which were already going at a slow pace, they were staggered because people have to work. And also plenty of time is available, these has been accelerated. We have a multi-skilling program. You see, unlike other manufacturing industries where people probably work in an assembly line, my work is quite interrupted kind of a thing. Sometimes there is an order, nobody's working. Sometimes people are doing some work in a silo kind of a system. So we've been propagating this concept of multi-skilling. We had developed modules for people to skill in other skill sets. So these have been pushed very vigorously. As I said, we have a method of taking tests under supervision, of course online, and certifying them. So we have already reached our target of December L&D as far as the online learning is concerned. Classroom is not now possible, but largely I think quite a bit, especially the technical courses, surprisingly are more effective in online learning than even in a classroom. Because in classroom sometimes they get bored here and there. Here you can really focus on to them, ask certain questions, again repeat it. So this is effective. We have soft skills, also selling skill courses as well. So we are putting the people through those courses like negotiation skills, selling skills, managing anxiety at workplace. Lots of, we have something like 17 soft skill courses, time management, team building, all those are there. What we done is we have assigned employees that my training and learning L&D manager actually monitors these almost on a daily basis. So a tracker is put out to the environment complete. Everybody can see which location, which business has done how many online courses. So this is giving a push. And employees who are not covering, I think very rightly the word, I think I also wanted to use that word, that is work for home. There are people who are nowadays working for home. So they are being pulled out and told, okay, you have to complete this assignment. Then with the year, new year has started. So we have this KPI issues coming up, which was going on a little slower pace. All my goals, KRAs and targets, everything has already been now completed. Earlier it used to take about a month. It will be done probably a little later than this thing. So my PMS ladies completed all entries uploaded. We have an online PMS. So I think this L&D is the best tool to engage people today. And we have the simulation game, business game, which we played around. Then we have twice a week, there is a con call with business leaders all across the country. We come on a platform like this and we discuss, as I said, let's be ready for future. So L&D is by and large, I think 90% L&D is happening, sometimes even better than probably it was happening earlier because we got time. Thank you.
Jitesh.
Yeah, so firstly, I want to actually rename learning and development to, first learning should be renamed to unlearning, and development should become disruptive development, I think. So I think we should now rename the function itself. So, what has been, different practices that, I've kind of advising and some of them got implemented also. So one is, I think, taking people through this whole phenomenon of unlearning, across the pyramid, right? And right from the leadership to managerial to the workforce. So technical learning has not been a challenge because I think it's, this has not only kind of reinforced that people have to constantly keep learning, and therefore technical learning is like a lot more individual driven. And given the fact that people are saving a lot of time otherwise that they would have consumed in commute, so they have clearly 1.5 to 2 hours every day to spend on self-learning technical modules. Now, having said that, I think we've used MOOCs from IIMs, but unfortunately some of those tell you about what's to be done in regular times. It doesn't tell you what's to be done in the business as unusual times, right? So even the best of people management, leadership courses have all spoken about, research is all about, things that are normal, right? And you talk, but then how do you actually create engagement when there is anxiety? How do you build ownership, loyalty when you know that there is a fear of either a pay cut coming or a job being on the line? So I think there's a lot of work which will have to be done in the development side. I see there is going to be, I think last 7 days, I think ever since the lockdown got extended, And as a lot of results started pouring in of the last quarter, I think clearly there is an anxiety at all levels, including the leadership levels, where I think a heavy amount of, I don't know what to call it, a coaching, a mentoring, all of those is, from a development standpoint. It's not the training things. It's the time to identify your A players. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Boone while he said, I think these are also the performance appraisals time. So I think this time it was all self-discipline, as if magic had happened. So no follow-ups. I think people know that this is going to be important in the career stuff. So I think some work on I think one of the other things that has been done is have people who are maybe not from the same team shadow others, right? So if, for example, if there's a client demo and a product is being demoed, that is basically learning on the job, right? You have the prototype and you kind of say, okay, you can't come and shadow someone, and maybe 2-3 demos, can you do an internal demo to the team? So that is a way of ensuring that people are cross-skilling themselves and not looking at just the core focus area. So I think, these have been some of the things. Essentially we want to say that, can we ramp around instead of ramping down if that situation comes to the Can't hear you, Ritu. You're on mute,
Yeah, I think while we have done the rounds on our questions, my questions rather, I think we have a lot of questions we have started receiving. So I'll probably take up some of them. I think all of them we may not have time for, but I think I'll just pick up some of them. I think one of the questions which I wanted to ask, and any one of you can respond to that what are the some of the permanent changes that we should expect in workplaces once we go back to work, in a sense, go back to our offices. In general, I mean, you can make it specific to your businesses, but you can make it specific to, in general, what we should be expecting. But what would be some of these permanent changes we should expect in workplaces? Anyone who wants to attempt?
Okay, so firstly, I think this will separate men from the boys. This is a new thing which will separate men from the boys. Secondly, the changes are going to be very intensive and extensive. But what are those going to be? I don't think anybody has got a real clear idea. Only one can guess. Maybe IT enablement will occur at a very fast pace, but frankly, no one knows.
Right. Sujitesh, anyone else? Sujitesh, Chankana?
Yeah, I think one thing which will definitely is, I think the digital literacy. Now I think people are getting digitally literate, but I think it will go to a very high level of digital proliferation, right? And I think a lot of processes will become modular in nature and substitutional in nature, so there'll be always a plan B and a plan C, which is not. So there's maybe one way of doing a process. There's always, you look at a process B and process C. And that will substitute. So it's not one best way of doing things, but multiple right ways of doing things. I think that's going to be changed. And I think you mentioned data is going to be the oil, but I think the currency which will also bring in a lot is the behavior, and both on business behavior as well as consumer behavior. I think that's going to be something which I agree with Dr. Boone is unpredictable, right? How is it going to change, right? Even next 12 months, are we all going to get scared of flying in a flight with a person next door who can be a carrier? Are we going to catch a train? Are we going to go to a mall and watch a movie? Are we going to sit in a restaurant? So I think consumer behavior is going to change, and as well as, and accordingly, businesses are made both on consumers and enterprises. But then I think what is going to the behavior is going to drive the currency. Okay, so, but we don't know. I mean, as of now, I can't say it's a permanent change, semi-change. It's like demonetization, but demonetization brought back cash, but it left some dent. But this is going to be like, you may not have dents. It may be a different car altogether.
We creators.
Nice.
Okay. I just want to make one point while we've covered the behavior and the business part. I would say that the key change, besides many others, is going to be in the change of behavior of our millennials, working millennials. See, today, till in the pre-COVID era, as I would like to call it, the entire focus was short term. Focus was on take home. It is probably important for a staffing company like yours. The focus has always been on take home, not the CTC. Nobody looks at PF. Nobody wants ESIC. They try to see how they could avoid or get themselves exempted from these statutory cuttings from the salary. But now they will realize that your PF could be the savior, considering that they are able to withdraw and take a loan against it. That saving will come in handy. ESIC, I think a lot of representations are being made to the government saying that yes, the nation is sick and ESIC should take this up and pay salaries to all the people who are not able to work at the moment. Yeah, so act as a proper insurance against the sickness that the nation is going through. Right, so this is being taken up in a big way, and if it goes through, then all the people who are coming to us today saying, I do not want ESIC, I just want take home. Obviously, we can't do it, but you have to increase the take home to ensure they don't feel the pinch of ESIC deduction. So that attitude is going to shift in a big way. I see that, if at all that goes through. Even otherwise, your PF, today nobody really, all these youngsters don't care about PF. This is going to change. And they'll appreciate all these statutory and compliances and deductions.
Interesting. So there is this very interesting question which has come up, which is, do you think that the current situation, the COVID situation, has possibly exposed quite unfairly the productivity difference between tenured resources and new ones? I mean, do you think some of your new joinees are probably, who's recently joined just before COVID, are feeling completely out of place? And so how does one help those people? And I think they are the ones who are also most likely to feel most anxious at this point.
I would like to address that one. See, the other point that I wanted to make along with this take-home mindset that youngsters have is the short-term outlook towards their jobs. Now they'll start viewing their jobs as careers and want to look at, staying in one workplace for longer periods of time rather than switching from one workplace to another very quickly. So that shift in behavior is also going to happen. And yes, the anxiety among the new joiners is higher. But if we can engage with them and if we can deal with them, as in redeploy them elsewhere in other, I think Sujit mentioned that we need to not ramp down, but ramp around. If we can ramp around and redeploy these resources, reskill and redeploy, I think that takes care of the anxieties.
We have these campus trainings we hire from campuses, and they had spent about 4 or 5 months. What we have done in the beginning itself. There is a separate group of trainees, and actually I am there sort of as a mentor. So any query which is raised by them, we also post a lot of messages in that. Some questions are also post. Some ideas also come out of it. So I also probably forgot to tell you that one of the survey results was that they want communication every day from management. So we are one mail, either from the CEO or from me or from their business head. One mail per day is going to everybody. So everybody knows something or the other is happening. Secondly, as I said, in this online model, all our trainees have been enrolled. So they are undergoing various courses, although they are finding it slightly difficult because they as yet do not know the business to that extent. So by questions and answers, their pace is slow, but their learning is happening even online, even for them. I think keeping these youngsters engaged is absolutely a necessity because they don't know your culture. It will take some time for that culture to build. So, day-to-day communication, having mentors across, that will help.
Okay. So moving, Sujitesh, yes.
No, I think one quick point. I think it's important to realize that people who are just joining or lesser tenure, they always will be on the fences. Given that it's always last in, first out if something was to happen, right? So I think it's a lot of communication, and I think even before onboarding. To make it fair, have that conversations of how are you going to assimilate, because I think the first 15 days or 30 days, any new person coming in to a physical environment versus a virtual environment, right? So that's a reality, but I think you have to take it that this is how it is. I mean, there's no alternative to assimilate except that doing a lot of learning oneself and going and networking, reaching out to people on your own, I think is going to be the difference. But in terms of performance, it would always be a 50-50 whether a lesser tenured person compared to a higher tenured person. But I think that kind of recalibration, the equilibrium will be set. I give it 2 months, and I think like Dr. Boone said, right, the men from the boys, or let me say the women from the girls. I think both ways, right? So I think both, it'll all come out. Right?
I suddenly realized that there are two women. I should have separate girls from women. That is.
But that may not be fair on the men. So now that's a difficult task ahead of you.
And in any case, girls mature faster. So I guess the line between girls and women is always thin.
No, men are unlearning, right? So men are unlearning. So they're also working for home, not just working from home now.
So I think there have been plenty of questions on work from home, but I'll just pick up with a few of them. And I think broadly you can cover. I'm going to take maybe one more questions after this and we can wrap up. I think the one question is that given not particularly for your organization, but given COVID, what do you think? How much of corporate India will move to work from home? And let's keep aside the tech companies from this. But how much improvement you'll see, or how much, if you were to express it in percentage or in any other form, do you think there would be a shift towards permanently making people work from home? That's one question. And secondly, the importance, given this suddenly we got exposed to work from home, do you think suddenly physical infrastructure will become irrelevant? So you might want to marry the two questions or keep it separate, but maybe quick summaries or responses to these.
Firstly, I think there's a difficult question because no one knows. But the kind of discipline, I'm using the word discipline because of the army, the kind of discipline is there in our DNA, I'll call it our culture. I don't think work from home will become a more norm than it was. Maybe 5%, 10%. I don't see a very big change.
So Jitesh,
I think you kind of put a rider and said, if it is non-tech companies. I think tech companies, I think 75 to 80% people will go for the work from home 100%. That it will save commercial real estate cost. I think that's clearly visible. Whether it's going to be work from home or work from anywhere, or they're going to be more setup of home offices, because it's going to put some pressure on the real estate industry and looking at converting maybe a midway hybrid, a residential area into a work area that will enable security, etc., etc. So I think those models will evolve, right? And maybe it's sort of khayali pulao at this point in time that one can actually think through and I think there's a lot of people doing that. That is one. I think for the non-tech companies, maybe 20%, right? So may not be a large part, because only 20% of such roles can be done in a work from home environment. But I think what is going to be there is that even if it is not work from home, I think the usage of digital is going to be heavy, right? So even it could be like you're solving a car issue, and the mechanic is guiding using technology to do that, and it can go in a self-service mode, and people could get charged, like doctors today are getting doing video consultations and addressing patient issues. So I think it's going to evolve, but clearly it's like you've tasted it. There will be a need to bring down costs, and one of the play is that commercial real estate is costly, so either that has to scale down. The other thing is geography is going to become history. So no longer, and I think we'll have job descriptions where people will start saying location is not a constraint, and talent will also start looking at it and saying, is location as a constraint? So I think that's going to be a fundamental game changer, right? Because then you're saying that the best of talent could work from anywhere. And when I talk about it, I'm also talking about in the global scenario, right? So we're not just talking about looking at it from an India sense, but a lot of people could actually work, globally, remotely, without, having to go through this pressure of immigration or visas. And that's going to be a game changer.
Jankana, your video has been switched off, so just okay. I think the final question which I wanted to ask before we wrap it up is on, suddenly, again, I know this is probably relevant for those who have gotten exposed to work from home and have tasted blood and have been able to ensure productivity and ensure continuity for sure. Do you think that suddenly it will question the existing org structures, in the sense that org structures have been increasingly has been either anywhere between a pyramid and a cylinder, is how org structures had begun to look, and there were supervisors of supervisor. Now that we have experienced that so many people have worked without zero supervision, do you see that there is going to be a huge reshuffling, rejiggling, or reorganization in this so-called supervisory layers which have built up in organizations over the years? Anyone?
See, this flattening of structure had already happened to a significant degree. It is already happening, because that was the need of the hour. This millennium do not want so many structures. They want to talk directly to the person who gives the decision. So I think flattening of the organization is underway, or is already going on. That this thing probably it will get hastened up. But the organization per se, the technology enablement is there. Organization per se, because of the brick and mortar company, it is more structured around the business entities. So that may not undergo much of a change.
Sujitesh, you? Jankan?
No, I think that organization design is going to resurface, and different organization models are going to come up. So I mean, there are no two thoughts about it that the pyramid or the cylindrical structure is going to be continuing. I think, as we speak, I think compensation levels are getting corrected. So if you see between a March, what you would be hiring or placing people at, and in April, if you did the same thing, there is a 15 to 20% difference itself. So there is going to be definitely an org redesign. Bit. Now, to what extent it will happen, we don't know. But I think there, these are difficult times. So difficult times will call for some bold, tough decisions. But I think it's going to be a combination of competence, contribution, and character. I think all these three will play. So yeah, it's good news for millennial, for the workforce that is entering. So I think if they can pick up those skill sets that can differentiate themselves, and hence the contribution is higher, I think it's going to kind of level out. So and it'll happen in a very accelerated fashion, right? So whether people management is equal to going to be supervision, or it's going to be more about taking those decisions, because it's not necessarily that you can have people just take decisions. So I think participative or collaborative decision making will come in place, but how much of self-managed teams can run for a continuous basis, I don't think there's enough research to prove it. So, but yeah, we know that self-managed teams have existed for some time, but it's always in pockets. And how much can self-managed teams in a virtual environment coexist? We'll see. Because I'll tell you what is working today in the work from home concept is that you are working with the constraints, right? You're in a lockdown situation where you have nothing else to do. Things open up, you have something else to do in some proportion. So today it is like a sandwich. You have nothing else to do but just work from home or work for home. But as we open up, there will be other things, and in that kind of when you're unleashing or releasing some of those constraints, it will give behavior, right? So what happens to organization? What happens to the workforce mentality? I think things have to unfold, and accordingly it will take shape.
Sure. Thank you very much. Actually, we are really short of time, and we've overshot our original schedule, of course, in spite of the technical glitch, by another 15 minutes. So while I'm tempted to ask one round of questions, but just for the sake of maintaining some discipline, I will have to wrap it up now. But there are many, many more questions which we have not addressed, but I think we will address them one-on-one wherever possible. Meanwhile, I think this is a dialogue which we would like to continue. I think this is the first of the series, and every week around the same time, we would be opening up this bridge to have more such conversations. And meanwhile, I think I have to thank Jhankana, Dr. Boon, Sujitesh a lot for your contribution, help, and I'm sure that you've managed to answer or validate some of the things that have been playing on people's minds, some of the stuff that we're already doing, but we probably would be able to go and refine them, or like some of the ideas around how online learning is happening, the kind of hackathons which can be done to keep them engaged. I think they are all valuable inputs. We intend to do another round specifically on skill development in the future series. We intend to do one on the importance of adoption of digital tools. It doesn't matter what kind of organizations you belong. The importance of expediting reforms around employment, employability, education, and the works. In summation, I think we've been for a long time as an organization propagating the importance of paperless, presenceless, and cashless, and suddenly COVID has brought that agenda right at the center of all discussions today, because I think in no other times has been the PPC agenda more relevant than today. So thank you so very much for your participation, and let's keep this conversation going, right? Thank you. Thank you, Jhankana. Thank you, Dr. Boon. Thank you, Sujitesh.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.